I've got you over here to the workbench where I brought the manifold and turbocharger combination off of the 8.3 over here. I had a hell of a time getting this thing apart. The turbocharger off the exhaust manifold, it was jammed on there. As I had mentioned in a previous video, it was very hard to get to these back bolts while the manifold was on the engine. But once I got it over here, getting to them wasn't the issue. It was how tight they were. Now, what I did is I was able to get one of them loose just by putting a wrench on it. The other three I had to actually apply heat. I just brought a little propane torch over here, applied some heat to the nuts and got them loose. As you can see, three of them came off. The fourth one broke actually. Even though I had applied heat to it, it broke. But that won't be an issue if I, for some reason, happen to reuse this. What I'm going to do is I'll take it over to the welding bench. Just take a standard nut onto it. I could probably get a 3/8 nut to fit over that thing and just take it on there. I'll apply a little heat to the manifold and work it off with a wrench after I weld it and it cools off. So, but the other reason that I kind of brought you over here is I wanted to show you this manifold. Now what I've done is taking some measurements on this existing exhaust manifold and related those the exhaust manifold and the turbo housing inlets, the port sizes down. Now in comparison, you can see that the exhaust manifold is 1.375, or it's I think 375 is like 3/8, 1 3/8 by 1.950 inches long, and compare that to a new style T3, which is 2.37 by 1.75. So the T3 is going to be a lot bigger, and that's the T3 is a smaller of the new standard size manifold outlets. T4 goes up to 3 by 2 basically. So you can see that the T3 is a lot bigger than what I have here. Now, just for reference, I have an exhaust manifold off of an old 5.9 Cummins, and I'll bring that over here, and you can see how much bigger the ports on this exhaust manifold are to the flange or a turbo adapter than the old 5.9 was. And in relationship, there is the exhaust ports, and you can see how much bigger basically the whole manifold is over the old 5.9. Now these are rectangular ports on this, and these are round ports, but again you can see that probably a lot more area into this. Now I've been told I can get an exhaust manifold. I haven't found one online, but I've been told by a very reputable diesel guy that I can get an exhaust manifold for the 8.3 that's going to adapt to that T3 housing. So that's kind of what I want to run. I want to run a Borg Warner 300 series, probably a 366 or 66 millimeter inducer housing opening for it. So I just wanted to bring you over and show it to you. Again, I had a hell of a time getting that thing. After I got the bolts off, I even had a hell of a time getting the separating the exhaust manifold from the turbo. I actually had to set it up there and hit on it. There was a lip here where the turbo housing overhung the exhaust manifold, and I had to soak it with PB Blaster and kind of hit on it with a hammer and chisel to get a gap to open up. I tried to get a chisel in there beforehand to open a gap up, and I couldn't do it, so had to beat it open a little bit, get a little gap in there, and then put a chisel in there to spread them apart. But they really didn't want to come. They were stuck on there big time. But it came apart fine. After I got that gap established, it came apart fine. So I'll probably I have seen some comments made about the some of the 8.3s having issues with the manifold, exhaust manifold cracking or breaking. So I'm going to keep that. You know, once I get the new one, I'll have to reuse this if I can't get another one, a new one that it will adapt. But I'll probably list that thing on eBay or something for somebody that might be in need of it. The same way with the turbo. But anyways, just showing you that the exhaust system off of the old 8.3, kind of compared to the exhaust off of a 5.9, an older style 5.9. Well, 5.9s are older style anyways, but you know what I mean. Probably maybe a first or second gen. I'm not really sure what it is. I'm gonna say probably a second gen. Dipstick tube out of the 8.3. Reason why I'm showing it to you is because sometimes they're a real pain in the ass to get off. Plastic, black plastic, and then it has a mounting spout that's attached to the block, but I don't know what it is, if it's because of the heat kind of adheres that plastic to that mounting spout, but usually they are such a pain in the ass to get off. You usually break them. I'm going to try and remove this hydraulic pump. Not really sure how it's held on here. I shouldn't really say it. I'm not sure how it's held on. I'm not sure how it's shaved into the compressor. Huh. I'm just going to use you handheld here with no gimbal, so it might be a little shaky. What I wanted to show you is intake for the air pump. It's taken off of the intake manifold, so it's actually getting turbo pressure into the intake for the air compressor, but the head of the air compressor is actually cooled. It has a cooling port into see a supply and a return on the cooling, which is pretty cool. oil line for the compressor, and I've got to assume it probably drains out through into the gear casing. Oil line between compressor and engine block. I'm just pulling off that supply hose that feeds from the intake manifold to the air compressor. One of the cooling line hoses. And the second cooling line hose. Ever seen those? They're flared, but they had those big rubber washers on them. And the starter's off. I just took that bracket over to the parts washer and cleaned it off. It was just covered with grease, gunk. But on the back side of it is where the ground cable had been attached to it. So there's the air compressor out, and it's a hole in the housing the gear went through. So as I said before, the air compressor's off. I'm pulling the rocker arms off right now, and I'm setting them over on the bench. I've got a piece of clean cardboard over there that I've marked out for the 6 cylinders, and just setting them over there in order. After I get the rocker arms out, I'll pull all the push rods out and take them over there too. I just kind of wanted to show you this, how clean that thing is. What it is let me pull you off the tripod. What it is these things that go over, they fit over like that and hold that. And what I assume it is some kind of oil dispersing tube. Until I get it out of there, I probably won't really know exactly what it is. I mean, I could go to the manual and look it up, but until I get it out of there, I won't know exactly what it is. Okay, I'm over here at the workbench, and I just wanted to show you that layout of the rocker arms and that oil tube. And that is an oil tube. I told you that I looked at it and I kind of thought that that's probably what it was. So the oil comes in from the up through the head into that port. Now there is another port on the other end of it, but that port in front just sets on top of a casting, or part of the head casting, so it isn't ported back into the head. As you can see, there is small holes in the side of the tube where the oil comes out through. So it enters up there, comes out through those small holes in the side of the tube. The other thing that I just wanted to clarify, I talked about that compressor. I was kind of shocked to find out that the gear housing had a hole big enough for the gear to just slide back through, so that compressor can be taken out without having to remove the gear cover plate. I didn't know that. I probably, if I had looked in the manual, I probably could have found that, but it was probably a lot simpler by trial and error and figuring it out on the engine. But anyways, there is that hydraulic pump, air compressor. Starting, I've got to pull the P pump off still. And then I will probably remove the head over there too, but I'll bring it back. This is a number one injector out of the number one cylinder. Now, it might not be as bad as it looks. That's just dirt that kind of goes down and gets caked in between because the injector kind of sits down in the cylinder. Although it does, that appears to be like a plastic housing. But I'll bring it back. What I did is pull these lines off too. Fuel line, getting ready to pull the head off. So I'll bring it back. See if I could get something that fits on here snugger to try and get a little twist on those injectors before I try and pry them out. Removing head bolts.
Okay, you're going to probably wonder how I went from the injector removal to head bolt removal. Well, what my plan had been is to remove the head and take it over to the bench and then pull the injectors off. One of the things that isn't going to be shown here but was shown in a shop update is there was a couple of tools that I made for trying to remove the injectors. One was a pry bar that I slotted that would try and go around the injector so that I could pry it up and out, but that didn't really work. At this point in time, I don't even know whether I had made that tool yet or not. But I started removing the head bolts only to realize that there was going to be an issue. On the 5.9 Cummins, you can remove the head and take the injectors out afterwards. You'll see what the issue is here in a second.
And that one. Move that relief line for the cooling system. So what was probably no time to you actually took a long time because I couldn't find my 13mm, the standard one. Combination open and box end. And I spent a long time looking for it and still actually haven't found it. Actually just grab the cordless impact. Let me back up a little bit. What I'm going to do is put some tension on it with a lift. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Let me just double check the manual and make sure I've got all the head bolts out. It almost feels like there's a bolt in there. I went over to the manual. Let me actually. I'm going to take you over to the manual and show you, because when I looked at the manual at first it goes to 26 and there isn't 26 bolts. I don't know what they've done, but let me take it over there and show it to you. There it is. Just something to use as a pointer here. You know what they're doing is they're showing those injector bolts. I wonder if those injector bolts are holding it. Head bolt, 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 20. But they're showing those injector. I wonder if they're into the block. Let me go pull them out, see if it makes a difference. I'll bring it. Now I have most of them out, but let me take the other two out. Oh, you know what it is? There's a bolt down underneath that injector. No wonder the damn head wouldn't come off. Now I've got to get them injectors out. I was having issues getting those injectors out. They have to come out now. Let me, I've got that one injector out. I can show it to you. Damn, I never even noticed that. Let me, I'm going to shut you off for a second. I'm going to put these over at the bench and I'll bring you back and I'll show you the hole. Okay, that's the hole where that injector goes. And I can't even see it. I've got to clean it off. See down in there? Yeah, I got to get the rest of those injectors out. Okay, this is a continued process of trying to get them injectors removed.
Okay, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about this. There's a lot of footage of me trying to get these injectors out. If you go back to my shop update of 531, you will see this tool, and I talk about the other tool that I tried to make. The first injector came out fine. The second injector would not come out, or the other injectors would not come out. So I ended up having to make, tried to make some tools to get the injectors out, and that failed. And the tool that you see me using right now is a tool that was successful. However, 3 of the injectors came out as a total piece. 3 of the injectors broke. And I will go into that further in another video. But let me just say that 3 of them broke in taking them out, and I actually, those injectors were in there so hard, this tool that you see me using, the thread started stripping on the all-thread rod and the nut, trying to get them out. So I will go into that in greater detail. I'll just throw a pick and pick up here of the broken injectors, just so you know what I'm talking about. and we will.
Heat build up into that nut.
What I'm talking about is there was that nut was getting really hot from the torque of that bolt. But anyways, I will go throw that pick and pick up of the broken injector, and we'll go into detail of how I'm going to try and get them out of the heads, in a later video.
Okay, I've got you at a little bit of a different angle on the different side of it.
Okay, so I'm going to leave a little bit of this clip in because you're going to see one of the broken injectors as it comes out. So, and then I'll cut the rest of it out.
Yeah, it broke too. Well, I'm really going to have to do some research on kind of fighting every step of the way. A little hard to get them bolts out of there. Okay, this is a bolt that came out of one, two, three, four, fourth cylinder, and it kind of fought me all the way out. And look at it, it's got junk in the threads, like I'm gonna have to really take a look at that the tap on that to see if it doesn't look like it was cross-threaded, but it sure looks like it's got a lot of carbon on the bolt. Got to look at that head gasket in that location and take a real good look at that tap. Okay, there's a head off. I've still got to get her over to the bench, but it's off. It's up in the air. What I'm going to do, let me go handheld, and I'll show you the tops of the pistons, but with the exception of the carbon buildup on the top of the pistons, they look to be pretty good. I'm not really seeing any cracks or anything in them, but again, let me wash my hands and get the handheld camera and take you with the light over there. Okay, we're handheld and we're over to the piston right now. This is number one cylinder, and what I was talking about, little carbon buildup, but hopefully, as you can see, not a lot, because you can still identify the numbers 28, and it looks like a /17, but this right here is the susceptible place to these pistons where they end up sometimes cracking. And in none of the cylinders am I seeing any cracking. Sorry for that bump. Clean cylinder walls. They really look good. Now, I will go into more detail as I do it. One of the things I wanted to mention is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the bolt that I had issues with, and you can see there is some buildup around that bolt hole. Might have looked like there could have been a little bit of a, as you see that, this is a bolt hole on number 3, number 2, number 1, and then back to 4. We might have been getting a little blow by on that head gasket into that bolt hole. So, or something was going on with it. The area around that bolt hole, the gasket part of it, is surely different than any of the other ones. The other ones are flat and smooth, and this one acts like there was possibly some degradation into it. But anyways, I'm gonna bring you back. We'll do an in-depth look at the pistons and the cylinders and everything along with it, but I just wanted to show you. So that's gonna end this chapter of the build. We'll bring you back. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button, comment, and subscribe.